Magazine. I am delighted to be joined by our columnist, Katie Thistleton, Radio 1 DJ, mental health campaigner, and all-round amazing wise being. Welcome, Katie. I'm so delighted you're joining us today.
I am so delighted. It is so lovely to hear you introduce me like that, because I've been such a fan of Psychologies magazine for years and years and years. And we met, didn't we, at a mental health event, the School of Life event that I was hosting with Alan Debotton, who obviously is amazing. And you came up to me and said, "Oh, I'm from Psychologies magazine. I'm the editor of Psychologies magazine." And I was like, "Oh my God, you're brilliant." And you were like, "Will you come in the magazine?" And I was like, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah. So Katie, we were lucky to get her for shared values, and we chatted and chatted. And I just thought, Katie, because what's lovely about you, Katie, is you're honest about your own journey, which is what I really love. What we all love about Psychologies, the writers in our magazine, is that we're honest and open about, we don't know what we're doing either. So for you were really honest about your own emotional journey and your mental health journey and how that's worked for you. So that's why I'm very excited that we'll be working. And you're a lot younger than many of our writers and me. So you're working with Radio 1, and you're going to be talking perhaps to our younger listeners and to our younger audience. But what sort of topics are you going to be covering for us over the next 6 months?
Yeah, so I feel like I'm almost a teenager at heart still. I've always just had a connection with that sort of 14, 15-year-old girl, and all the stress that you go through, all the things that you go through in those years. And that's worked out quite well, because most of my career has been on CBBC and Radio 1. And then those have been the people who I've met at events and who have contacted me on social media, and who I did my book for. And now I feel like that audience have kind of grown up with me a little bit, because I've sort of graduated from CBBC onto Radio 1. And now I'm just very at the forefront of whatever's going on for young people, whatever's going on for students, 20-somethings. And I'm 31 now. And everyone told me when I was turning 30, "Oh, it's the best years of your life. It's so much better in your 20s. You finally got your act together." And I think there's a lot of truth in that, definitely. I wouldn't say I've fully got my act together yet, but there's definitely a lot of truth in that. There's a lot of reflecting that goes on in your 20s, and a lot of self-learning. So I thought this column could be about your 20s, basically. And it's me looking back on all the things that I think are the biggest lessons. So, for example, this week's is about social media and comparison, because I think that's a huge issue. But I'm also going to write a column about disordered eating and body image, because I think that's huge for lots of people, most people probably. Healthy relationships, friendships and connection to people, because I think we learn a lot about friendships when we're younger, but we don't learn really the reality of it, which is that you need to be with people you actually connect with. And so it's about those lessons you learn in your 20s.
Yeah, I mean, again, for our audience to hear kind of you've been dealing with teenagers and young people for most of your career, and in terms of the mental health campaigning that you've done, what are the major you're going to be writing about all of those and talking to our audience about those things over the next 6 months. But what's happening right now? We just heard from Boris, that we're coming into another lockdown. What's your network saying about how are they feeling right now, and how can we help them?
Yeah, do you know, I think there's a big sense at the weekend we were talking about going back to uni, and there's a big sense of this is unfair around that. We were sort of saying we all need to have a paddy and stamp our feet, and there's this big feeling of, oh, right, I'm not having a freshers week, I'm not having the same university experience as everyone else, I'm not going out. In those years, we all know, those years between sort of like 16 and 21, they go so slowly compared to the rest of your life, don't they? There's so many big events in them. Then when you turn 21, it's like, whew, it just flies, and all of a sudden you're 31. But is that your dog? Is your dog?
Sorry. I love that. I rescued him a couple of weeks ago, so
I saw that.
To be on my knee every second. So apologies for getting
a dog should always be involved, definitely. But it's all those big events that you go through. They're such a big deal, aren't they? It's so many little things, like in a month when you're a teenager or a young adult, so many things can happen that are life shaping, they're life changing, whether that's things in relationships, whether that's things with your friends, whether that's nights out, they're huge and they're really life-changing. So I think there's a real sense of, oh, we're not getting that. We're really missing out on what our parents and our older siblings and stuff had. And I think, you know, I think young people are overthinkers these days. I think we've got a lot of overthinkers on our hands. And I was certainly that person. There's a lot of pressure, I think, now. And it's really boring to blame social media. But it's boring because it's obvious. And it's obvious because it's true. I think that social media does amplify all these things that we've always had to worry about. So, of course, no matter how old you are watching this, you know, my mum's watching this and she's nearly 70. Of course, she'll have gone through those same things of worrying about what she looked like and relationship troubles and friendship troubles. They've always existed. But now we can just look at everyone else's perfect lives on social media and feel a pressure ourselves to put out how well we're doing. So I do think it has a lot to answer for. So that's a big issue.
You talked about in your first column for us, you know, how lockdown actually helped you with that kind of comparison. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think for the first time in my entire career, I think for the first time in everyone's entire career, there was a new experience, wasn't there? This has never happened for us before. And I have spent, you know, I've always been someone who's compared myself to other people and had quite low self-esteem all throughout my teenage years, you know, not liking how I looked and worrying about fitting in and all that kind of thing. And so I did the worst possible thing to possibly do if you are insecure, which is get a job on TV. And it is the worst thing you can do if that's what you're like. And all of a sudden I was thrust into this world where someone else was choosing what I wore. I was on unflattering camera angles. People were tweeting stuff about me. I go for a Nando's and I'd be covered in chicken and a kid had come over and asked for a photo with me. And all of a sudden you're in this environment, and it was only kids TV, so it was a lot friendlier than sort of being, you know, Holly Willoughby. You know, she gets a lot more abuse. Yeah. But still, there was a low level of that kind of going on, and it sort of came out of nowhere for me because it's not what I sort of planned to do. And for my whole career, I have been really bad at comparing myself to other people. I mean, we're all terrible, all presenters. We're in our group chat and we're like, have you seen such buddies doing this? Why are they doing that? Such buddies on Strictly this year. You know, we're all so bitter. When I first got my presenting job, my old boss, who was really lovely, said to a colleague of ours, oh, I just don't want Katie to become another bitter presenter. And I thought, what does he mean by that? And then I met all the other presenters who I'm now good friends with, and I was like, oh yeah, they're all quite bitter. That's the word I'd used to describe them. And every time I feel myself getting bitter now, I remember what he said, and I think, don't let yourself become that person. But there's just something about the job that makes you compare yourself to other people all the time and feel like you're not doing as well. It's very public. Your failures and your successes are very public. You're either on telly or the radio or you're not. You know, it's obvious. And there's all this talk about, you know, where's such a buddy now? What have they done? Oh, they're not getting much work, are they? But weirdly, in lockdown, what happened was nobody had any work. So it's picking up now. This is changing again, and I can feel all the comparison creeping back in. But for the first couple of weeks, months, didn't matter who you were. You were at home watching Netflix. You weren't going out. You were bored. You were posting the same memes as each other. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, we are on a level here. No one's successful. Yeah. Obviously, some of them got more money in the banks. They've got less to worry about. But all of a sudden it felt like, oh God, we're all doing the same things. So actually, if you were to compare yourself to other people, it would be in a more wholesome way. It was like, what's everyone doing? Oh, they're doing Zooms with the family, or they might be doing a workout. But it wasn't, oh, such a buddy's on the Brits red carpet and I'm not. So it just kind of brought life back down to a more manageable level, I think.
It kind of humanized it, isn't it? I mean, you know, I was doing interviews with really eminent psychologists and all of these people, you know, like this, and there they were, you know, their dogs were, you know, their kids were coming in, and it was, you know, it felt like all of a sudden you were opening a door or window into someone's, it created more authenticity and more vulnerability around how we presented ourselves. It wasn't just our professional face. It was, you know, we were seeing into the homes of our, and that's more to come probably over the next 6 months as we do that. So for you, what sort of tips have you got for us around how to handle, you know, it's almost like FOMO, isn't it? Fear of missing out. You know, they're doing better than me. And I don't think it's just about TV presenters or people in media. I think it happens for many of us. We look at their Instagram feed and like, you know, all I did was take the dog for a walk.
Yeah, exactly.
I did at the weekend. They've gone to Italy and, you know, they're learning how to hang glide.
I'm sick of everyone being on holiday. That's driving me mad because I'm not going on holiday this year. And yeah, that's upsetting me. The second the lockdown was lifted, every influencer in the world was off to Ibiza. And I was like, oh, especially. Yeah, I mean, the important thing to remember, I think, is that it always comes from somewhere in you. You know, if you're sort of getting really bitter and jealous and you're looking at what other people are doing, and like you said, that's true of any job, of any, you know, even if you don't have a job, whoever you are. I know a lot of my mum friends, it's that sort of mum comparison that they have all the time of people competing to be the best parent on social media. It's very much prevalent in the fitness world, for example, and in the working world. So I think you need to remember that if you are getting to that point where it's really overtaking you, that you're really jealous and feeling inadequate, it's coming from somewhere in you. It's coming from the fact that you're not fully happy with yourself. And if you are fully happy with what's going on in your life, then you won't compare yourself to other people in the same way. So it's about kind of switching off the social media, and instead of spending that time looking at everyone thinking, what are they doing, looking at you and what will really make you happy. I mean, I used to sit there looking at someone presenting some TV show about cars or something and think, why have I not got? And then I think, I couldn't care less about cars. I couldn't say anything about my own car apart from it's red. Why am I jealous of this person presenting this show? You know, sometimes we look at other people's lives and think we want it, but we don't actually want it. We'd hate to live like that. So I think we need to remember, what do we actually really, really want, and focus on that. And I'm a big fan of lists. I have lists and lists of all the things that make me happy. Inspired by Matt Haig's Reasons to Stay Alive, I have a list of things that make me feel good, things that make me feel worse.
Yeah.
I look at that all the time. I have a list of things that make me feel alive. You know, when you just need to feel alive, you know, and you need to go for an outdoor swim, or you need to see some nature, or you need to laugh with friends, you know. And I have a list of things that just make me feel good. And I look at that and I do those things when I'm feeling bad, and I focus on my own goals. Stay in your lane, they say, where there's no traffic. Focus on your own goals, and stop looking at everyone else's. But it's not easy. We'll always do that. There's something in us that makes us want to compare ourselves to other people. So get off the social media for a little bit if it's getting you down. Sometimes I have a great day and I'll go on Instagram and I'm furious, and I think, why have you done that?
Yeah.
But I'm in a good mood, and now you're vexed because you looked on Instagram.
Yeah, I think it's a very human thing, isn't it? It's like, forgive ourselves for comparing ourselves, but then it's about how to get back to center again. So I love what you're saying is, you know, writing those lists of actually, what do you really, really want? You know, we at Psychologies, we launched a course recently about create the life that you want. And actually, when you get down to it, what is it that you really want? You know, and often it's just, how do you want to feel every day? And it's actually, you know, you think you want X, Y, and Z, but why do you want that? What do you think it will give you? Isn't it? It might, but you might want a sense of peace, or you might want a sense of excitement or adventure. Or for me, creativity is very important. So it's like, what is it really? So that, because I can't control what's going to happen with COVID, but I can be creative every day. I can take a walk in nature every day. You know, I can go on a little adventure and go around a different way where I live every day. I can do all of those things, and that's within my control. But I think, especially right now, there's so much that feels out of our control, and it feels very scary. But it's like, okay, so what can I? So I love this idea of looking at lists and doing that, which is great,
because we are focusing a lot on the things we can't do at the moment. We can't go on holiday. Maybe you can't work in the same way, but like you say, there's a lot of the stuff that we really want is probably very simple, and we can still do those things at the moment.
I mean, what were the lessons from lockdown that you found? I mean, for us with the magazine, we were looking at that. You know, we had a whole kind of exercises about what were the lessons that you learned from lockdown, and what are you going to take forward in terms of how that's going to affect you. So for you, what were the things that you've learned? You know, the things that you were like, oh, that surprised me.
Yeah. I think I weirdly learned that I do like to work, and that surprised me, because I went from being really busy and constantly in hotels and on trains and in other different cities and hating that, to being at home with nothing to do, which is what I was desperate for. And I think what I've realised is I hate both of those things, and there's just a balance to be struck in the middle. So it's made me realise that you know, what the real success for me is trying to find a job where I can have that middle ground, where I can spend less time in travel lodges and on Virgin Pendolinos, and more time at home, but also I don't want so much time at home that I'm not working. I've not got something to get me out of bed and make me be productive. So I think I really realized why we need that. You know, I always think, oh, what, we work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday and all our lives, and then we die. What a terrible life. But actually it's made me realize we need that. We need to work as humans. And a lot of us have quite missed it. And it makes us really appreciate the evenings and the weekends and the holidays and the times that we're not working. So we do need to do that. It made me, I mean, I didn't need to realize that, you know, friends and family are really important to me, but I think it made me realize that it doesn't matter what you're doing with the friends and family, having a Zoom call with them is really fun and we have a good laugh. Sitting in my mum and dad's garden is enough. You know, we don't need to be going for fancy meals or anything like that. It's about actually chatting. Some people I've spoken to more in a way, because we've done FaceTimes, and I'm definitely going to carry on FaceTimes rather than normal phone calls, because I've realized just for, you know, a normal quick phone call, I might do a FaceTime now with a friend and I'm like, oh, it's so much better. You get so much more from that, don't you? Being able to see their face. And so yeah, that's a couple of things I've definitely learned. Nature, I've got back out in nature a lot more. I've always been quite an indoor girl. But yeah, I've been going on lots of walks and I've started to appreciate that for my mental health as well.
Yeah, fantastic. So I know you'll be coming on Facebook for us every month, and you'll be writing your amazing column, which is wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that. But before you go, just one tip for our readers about, you know, we've just heard about, you know, perhaps we're going into another lockdown. There's one piece of wisdom that you would sort of leave us with. What would it be?
Oh, for the lockdown,
one
piece of lockdown wisdom, it would be think your core self, what you really want out of life, and how, make a list of it, and how can you get that at the moment, and how can you work at that every day, and maybe write it into a little bit of a routine. So I have a little routine written where it's like read in bed at night, exercise at the start of the day. That doesn't always happen, but you know, if you write a little plan like that, and the plan is based on what you truly want, then you can't go far wrong.
I absolutely think that's fantastic advice, and I agree with you, because you can control your morning routine and your evening routine, and you can look forward to that.
And routine is so important. That's what I learned in lockdown. Routine is so important. When I, you know, first few days of lockdown, I just watched Say Yes to the Dress on the couch for hours and hours with no sense of routine, and it was all right for a week, but after that I was like, oh, I can feel this getting me down now. I need some structure.
The structure, routine, and but based on your actual values about what actually truly makes you happy, which is wonderful. Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. That was really inspiring and useful, and I hope will give all of us, not just the young people, something to work on as we kind of journey on the next 6 months, which goodness knows what it's going to be like. But that was really helpful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Susie. It is a pleasure to be part of the team. I'm very, very honoured.
Brilliant. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.